My military friends in Beijing is so confident. We can lock out Taiwan's infrastructure in 15 minutes. Everything. Power, communication, everything. In 15 minutes. Well, you can imagine one of the not regular big missiles, right? All this 火箭炮. One truck with 20 missiles can shoot 400 kilometers with accuracy. The Soviet Union used to have this in the Second World War, at the end of the Second World War, very powerful weapons. Now, if you want to resolve it, the only way is by force. And militarily, I think both sides agree, Chinese has the ability. Xi is determined to solve it in the next 5 years, if not 10. I don't think it will extend beyond the next 5 years. So the U.S. reading that the most likely time to happen, they said, is from this year to 2027.
But anyway, welcome to this lunch. I have never seen, you and I are about the same age. I have never seen the world as messed up as it is today. And I think one of the biggest problems is not the Ukraine war, by the way. Ukraine, there's wars all over the tape, all over the place. There's wars in Iraq, Iran, Syria, Vietnam, Afghanistan. There's wars always, sad and tragic and immoral as they may be. So it's really not the war itself, but the reaction of the West toward the war that is really, really problematic, in my opinion. But to me, that is, frankly, only the second fiddle to something far more serious, and that is the United States decide to pick China, pick a fight with China. China, as far as I'm concerned, always don't mind playing second fiddle to the United States. So why make someone who want to play second fiddle to you into your enemy? It is just, in my opinion, not a smart thing. So, tell us about how you see the U.S.-China relations today, and where do you think it may be going? But the first question is perhaps, why did America pick on China? Tell us.
No, I don't think the Americans pick on China.
Oh, they don't?
They have a good reason. And the reason is quite transparent, quite consistent. But what you read is, of course, that you see a rising power which are challenging their position. And this rising power has a system which is so different, and ideologically and culturally so different. And not only different, it's something they don't like, being authoritarian, dictatorial, oppressive society. If they rise to challenge us and become the dominant force in the world, that would be the end of the Western civilization or whatever. That's on the surface, right? They cannot have a peer competitor, as Sullivan said, that has a completely different ideology, and an ideology we don't accept, we don't welcome. So they have to do everything they can to slow down its development, possibly keep them in their place so that we can maintain the status quo and the present world order as guided by the U.S. No? I think you don't need me to tell you what the U.S. position is. On the table. I can tell you a little bit how the Chinese sees this, which you possibly can read it or see the spokesman from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that keep articulate their position as the U.S. is trying to suppress our development. The U.S. is the aggressor, want to retain their hegemony and dominant position in the world and exploit other people, including the Chinese. That's the position you can hear from the academics, think tank people, and including officials' positions.
In China.
In China. I give you my personal view of this underneath these two positions on the table. I think the Americans sees the situation as dangerous, and it's defensive, not aggressive. America has to protect their dominant position, not because they want to exploit others, because they don't see their relationship with other people are exploitative. They have to keep their dominant position because they have to keep the US dollar as the dominant position. That's behind it. When I said this, no American, or not too many people would disagree with me. But they might not agree with me that that is the real reason why the Americans are so strong on this issue. Think about it. America can consider its own domestic situations and needs to raise or lower their interest rate without worrying so much about the exchange rate. Hong Kong, with a peg that linked to the US dollar, we have no freedom on this, right? The British, the Japanese also have no freedom on this. They don't have a peg. But if the US raise the interest rate, and if they don't, like the Japanese are doing now, their currency is going to depreciate continuously. With a dominant currency in the world, which has many beneficial reasons, US enjoy a freedom which no other country enjoy. And that's important to them. If they were forced to increase the interest rate like what Britain is facing, what the Japanese is facing, what Hong Kong now is facing, 1 percentage point increase would create havoc for their public finance. They are paying in interest for their debts. It's the same amount as they're paying for their defense budget. That's the latest development. More like $800 billion a year. They cannot lose control of their interest rate. Now, if they lose the dominant position of the US dollar, meaning they have to adjust their interest rate, not just consider their own domestic situation, but as to also consider the world situation, that would be the end of the US dominance. Okay? They're fully aware of that, but they don't want to talk about it, of course. I don't agree a lot of Chinese who are saying that the US dollar's position allowed them to reap a lot of profit. That's not true. Soros may use this to make money, but not the US government. The US government wants this to remain in their control. If they lost control of this, like the British financial minister or the Japanese financial minister, they'll be held in America. So they have to face this challenge from China, which is the second biggest economy. But the irony of this is they know. One of my professors in Cornell did a big study on this. RMB is the only currency in the world can challenge the US dollars. But they are not doing it. And this is true. The book is two or 3 years old. I think it's still true now. Despite all this talk about internalization of the RMB, and how they're doing well in this or that, is completely untrue. A simple fact. China has 20-some% of the world trade. How much of that are done in RMB? Less than 2%. Why are they doing it? Why are they selling porks to Hong Kong and collect Hong Kong dollars, not asking Hong Kong to pay in RMB, which the grower in Hunan, all his expenses in RMB? They still ask you to pay in Hong Kong dollars. The Chinese look at their behavior. They're not challenging the US dollars in any way at all. Not in trade settlement, not in reserve currency. There's a minimum amount of RMB bonds outside of China. It's not challenging US bonds at all. But that is the hidden challenge to the US. Unfortunately, US looked at it another way and decided to do everything they can to slow down the Chinese development. Of course, at the same time, try to rebuild their own domestic economy in order to keep way ahead of China so that the Chinese cannot change the rules in international relations and international trade and the economy. Now, Taiwan. Taiwan, everybody agrees, is the biggest danger in the world now in terms of war. Now, my reading is the rumor in the middle is that Xi had made the resolution of the Taiwan issue his primary reason for extending his term to beyond 10 years. Now the talk is even 10 years in addition to the 10 years. He wants to solve the Taiwanese issues. He issued a statement in 2019, in January the 2nd, in commemorating the 40 years unification move. He laid down two tasks. Give me a one-country system policy for Taiwan, and gave me a suggestion how to negotiate with Taiwan. We did some projects on that, but by now I think most of them are out of date. The situation in Taiwan is again another irony. If for the Chinese, if they have the choice to leave it alone and let time solve it, that's still, I think, a very strong view inside mainland China from various sectors. Another view is that he wants to solve it, and the only way he can solve it is by force. That's my conclusion. The U.S. position on Taiwan is that we still hold on to one China policy. We don't support Taiwanese independence. We want to keep the status quo. Now, if we add it all together, the most important is the status quo. For the U.S., the status quo is no unification. Okay? Because no force, you cannot use force, then you can only through negotiations. And the U.S. influence in the island is so strong, nobody on the island, no significant force in the island would come out and say, let's negotiate. Right? The two dominant forces in Taiwan is the DDP, which is pro-independence, and the KMT, which migrated from the mainland to Taiwan and lost power 10 years ago. Their position is the same as the U.S. No war, no independence, and no unification. That's the KMT's position. And the very minute single voices in the island said, let's negotiate, and represents nobody, basically. The bottom line is the U.S. would not allow a peaceful negotiation between the island and the mainland, and he has the ability to do it. So on Beijing's side, negotiation is not going to happen. Substantial, meaningful negotiation. All right? one or two individual or small little party doesn't count. Now, if you want to resolve it, the only way is by force. And militarily, I think both sides agree Chinese has the ability. Just basically of geography, right? It's only 200 kilometers. My military friends in Beijing is so confident. We can lock out Taiwan's infrastructure in 15 minutes. Everything. Power, communication, everything. In 15 minutes. Well, you can imagine one of the not regular big missiles, right? All this 火箭炮, one truck with 20 missiles can shoot 400 kilometers with accuracy. The Soviet Union used to have this in the Second World War, at the end of the Second World War, very powerful weapons, but they are not accurate. Right? The range is limited, 50 miles, 70 miles. But now they develop 400-kilometer batteries that can guide it by GPS or their beidou and can hit the target within 10 meters. So you can then lock out everything in Taiwan if they want to in 15 minutes. Now, so the question, even the American would agree with all their game plans, they never won a trial. Agreed that China have an overwhelming military advantage in taking over Taiwan. So there are two questions remaining which the Chinese has to deal with. One, after you get into Taiwan, how are you going to run the place? The Hong Kong experience is not a very good lesson, right? I'm part of it.
That's why.
The second is, how are you going to deal with the U.S. reaction? And the U.S. has showed you how they would do it in the Ukraine situation to deal with Russia, right? They went crazy. They went berserk. They sanctioned everybody and take over your properties without a hitch. They can go to that extreme. So Chinese has to face these two realities if they want to take actions. Now, there are many, many proposals on the table. Some of them are ridiculous. Well, but that's the reality we are facing. My reading is she is determined to solve it in the next 5 years, if not 10. I don't think it will extend beyond the next 5 years. So the U.S. reading that the most likely time to happen, they said, is from this year to 2027, which is a reasonable calculation, I think. So in China, when you talk to the people who are dealing with Taiwan issues, he said, Mr. Xu, there's no Taiwan issues. There's U.S.-China issues. In their eyes, the Taiwan issues is always American issues. How to deal with Americans on Taiwan.
Zhurongji said that to me 20 years ago.
Everybody says the same word. But now my suggestion to them, or my reading to them, is to solve the Taiwanese issues is the way to solve the U.S.-China problem, not the other way around. Because the old thinking is that you were doing good with the U.S., you convince them to let Taiwan go, and then Taiwan issues resolved. Because Taiwan without U.S. backing, they will capitulate. That's the old line of thinking. But now with the U.S.-China relation the way it is, there's no hope to convince the U.S. to let Taiwan go, right? Andrew Layton, a few of the U.S. think tank people,
Nathan,
come out to say,
spoke
well,
for us before.
If the Chinese can agree to the U.S., Japanese, and U.S., South Korea alliance and let it stay, we might be willing to let Taiwan go. But
Say it again. Say it again.
Yeah,
Repeat it, please.
If the Chinese would not disrupt the alliance between U.S., Japan, and U.S. and South Korea, meaning their geopolitical position in the Asian Pacific, in that area, with the exception of Taiwan, can stay, then the U.S. should consider allowing Taiwan to be unified with the mainland, which I think is a really small minority in the American establishment. So this is not going to happen. As Ronnie said, John Fontaine was in Hong Kong and Ronnie wanted us to have a chat with him. And he bring Professor Wang, Xiao Guang together.
Private meeting of 5 people.
And after the function here, and we walk over, he said, John, tell me, hey, I get your view. There's 2 views. One, Mr. Xiu, you think the situation will change by force. Professor Wang thinks there's no need to take any action because Taiwan will not go away and time is on our side. The time is on the Chinese side because Chinese will get stronger and stronger and stronger until American will recognize, the Taiwanese will recognize there's no gain, surrender. That is still a very strong view inside mainland China, okay? My view, I cannot, it's definitely a minority, but my feeling is that that's closer to what Xi is thinking than Professor Wang's kind of leaning. So we are facing with a situation which affects Hong Kong directly. I told them so. It's affecting Hong Kong now, and it will affect Hong Kong when it happened, and it will affect Hong Kong after it happened. I tell you, one of my junior staff in the CPU resigned. He said, these are Taiwanese who've been in Hong Kong for a long time, young guys, families in the banking business.
It's
he said,
Hong
Mr.
Kong
Xiu,
government's former think tank.
My family wants me to move back to Taiwan to take over the business. So thanks for the opportunity. I met him again 2 months ago. He's back in Hong Kong. My colleague asked him, why are you back? He said, Taiwan is very tense. Now they try to mobilize civilians to have military training because the latest approach is to train Taiwanese guerrillas. After the PLA comes, they'll fight in the mountain, right? So they ask you voluntarily to have military trainings. So his parents told him, go back to Hong Kong. Don't say, you're still young, and you'll be qualified to be drafted if they want you. That's how tense it is in Taiwan. And including yesterday, Xi Jinping visited the Joint Command and said that you have to 100% prepare for war from now. I think it shakes up the Taiwanese stock market today, right away. So I don't like war, okay? Watch the Netflix, No War in the Western Front. The German production is terrible. War is terrible, senseless. But war do happen. It do happen. And the decision to make war is not as rational as we like it to be. It's a mixture of different elements. And it just happened. And millions of people lost their life. That's unfortunately the human race's problem. I'll stop here and then we can talk.
Okay, first of all, I don't always agree with Mr. Xiu. And as you can tell, when John Thornton was here, I invited 3 friends to interact with him privately, just 5 of us. And they represent very different views, right? Xi Jinping on one side and Professor Wang on the other side. And they are both friends of mine. They are both teachers of mine. I learn from both, and then I make my own decisions. So what do you think, how do you think it may happen if war were to proceed on the Taiwan Strait? And what do you think the U.S. reaction will be?
Well, Biden, when asked this question, and several times he said, yes, we would, in a sense, intervene. Right? And the State Department immediately come out to clarify that he didn't mean it. I think that issue is irrelevant now from the situation militarily on both sides around the island. Okay? Meaning, no matter they intervene or not intervene, the Chinese are going to succeed in taking over the island. The difference is how much it costs them. Okay? It's not whether they'll succeed or fail. They will succeed. So I don't think the U.S., looking what they are doing in Ukraine, first, they would not send a single soldier to Taiwan. In fact, they wouldn't even have a soldier 1,000 miles from the coast of Fujian, because the range of the anti-aircraft carrier missile is 1,500 kilometers. So they will stay way away from the coast. And what can you do when you're so far away? Now, I think they will send advisors in civilian clothes. They will direct the fighting. They will give full intelligence support and hardware support. But they will not send a single soldier. And as long as that's true, there's no chance of winning for the American in this situation. Of course, the U.S. want to present a strong position to support Taiwan. But everybody knows, including those people in Taiwan, knows that's not going to happen. Okay?
Just insert one sentence. 2 days ago, a friend from the United States came to see me who knows a little bit about these kind of things. And he said that according to one study in America, in order to win the war in Taiwan Strait, America will have to sacrifice 30,000 American soldiers. So do you think that they would sacrifice 30? How about 30,000, right? So that goes to your point. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. The equation doesn't really end this. Even now, nobody understands why the Chinese want to get involved in the Korean War. They lost 200,000 people, right? Why? It's a slaughter, in a way, right? But the Chinese said we won because we prevented the Americans to go beyond the 38th and keep the status quo. The Americans, some young guys say, hey, how can you claim victory when you lost 200,000 and we only lost 50? Right. The Chinese general said, well, victory and failure is not based on body counts, right? It's based on your political objective of this action. Our objective is to prevent the American soldier stationed next to our border. You have to stay behind the 38th. We succeeded. We lost 200,000 people. You fail because you did not achieve MacArthur's intention of moving the line to the Chinese border, which we think is dangerous for us. Now, in recapturing Taiwan is a national issue. If they lost 1 million people, they'll do it.
That's for sure.
Right? But that's the Chinese mind that the American would not able to understand. I think even now, after Korea. They don't understand this. Why? So that's the cultural differences we cannot solve. But the biggest, I think, drawback, the effective way of the American in stopping the Chinese doing it is their reaction to the action, similar to what they did to Russia in Ukraine. Because Biden tried to convince Russia, don't do it. We will put out everything to punish you. Okay, they are saying the same thing to the Chinese now. Don't do it. We will do everything we can together with our ally to punish you, even though you might take over Taiwan. Right? I think that makes the Chinese, different backgrounds, particularly those in the business, will think twice. And of course, the Chinese is also facing with this reality because they're very vulnerable. Their oil, energy shipments through, a long trip from the Middle East to the East Coast through many vulnerable points. But there's something happened in Ukraine that changed the story. Because the Chinese don't usually rely on Russian oil and gas that much. And in the next few years, I think that's going to be increased. The second vulnerability is food.
You mean rely on Russian gas?
Now they're increasingly buying Russian gas and oil. And they no longer have to rely on a single source from the Middle East. The second vulnerability is food, which Russia also has. I think the Americans didn't realize what they did in Ukraine had changed the whole picture so much. The Chinese suddenly find themselves are not so vulnerable on these two fronts, which they are very much concerned because they try to build their outlet through Burma to the Indian Ocean, right? They try to build the outlet through Pakistan to the Middle East so that to dilute the single point through Singapore where most of their energy comes through. So the picture is changing, and it's changing for good for the Chinese. But the Chinese would not do it just because they are militarily able to, or because they have solved these two problems. I think they do it because to keep the status quo is cost them more and more in terms of political capital and economic benefits. Imagine a small country like Lithuania can mess around with your Taiwan issue, and you have to send your ambassador to try to convince them, don't do it. Don't send your politicians to Taiwan. Well, if I don't go, what are you going to give me? Right? That's the day-to-day deal you have to make. Or why did the German chancellor went to Beijing a few days ago? They signed a big contract with Airbus, despite all these big talks, right? And they cost them more and more in terms of economic and political capital. And everyone's seeing there's a game to play. I can play with Taiwan, and then the Chinese in Beijing will give me some goodies. Not to say the Americans are playing with their own games. The other danger in America is because they are not a one unified political power. Pelosi can go to Taiwan because purely on her own political considerations. Biden tried to convince him not to go, but he can do it. And end up the Taiwanese has to pay for it because the Chinese military had break all protocol in the past, which is some common understanding between the two. It's not a treaty, not an agreement. Now they can send their ships around Taiwan Islands only miles from the coast. So Taiwan, in fact, has become indefensible. You can have a plane, not a plane that's flying over your head, but you have a warship only 20 miles from your coast. How are you going to defend Taiwan? That's the reality that the Taiwanese has to face and the American has to face. And I think increasingly they will send planes and ships fooling around the island and create a reality which no defense force can hold Taiwan for more than a few hours. And that's the reality both sides. But so that is not the issue. That I think both sides agree. But how are you going to deal with running Taiwan, and how are you going to deal with the U.S. reactions? That's the only two remaining drawback for the Chinese. And I think they can solve it, believe me. They can solve it. Or they think they can solve it, okay? And when it actually happens, it might be different. But when you start doing it, you think you have solved this two problem already. But I think she is determined to solve this problem for other than the reason I just gave. There's other people with I don't agree that he wants to create his own legacy. Deng Xiaoping has a legacy of having Hong Kong return and Macau return to China. That's Deng Xiaoping's big legacy. Now you're the president of China now. If you want to leave behind something, Taiwan is the big apple. I don't buy that. I don't think she thinks in that manner. I mean, this is for personal glory that you do take actions ruthlessly just because of your own considerations.
I'm with you.
But the national issue that we have to have a unified China in order for China to become a strong country. Now, his biggest goal, right, is to rejuvenate the Chinese nation by 2049, the second 100 years. And he said it clearly in the speech that Taiwan has to unify as part of that objective. Really quite clear. I mean, he said it actually several years ago, and a lot of people, when I said there's a timetable, no timetable, Mr. Xu, no timetable. Then they don't realize, well, yes, no timetable, but there's a time limit. 2049 is a limit. This is clearly, he said it. It has to be resolved. Otherwise, we cannot achieve this goal. Now, when you have a limit, you're going to have a timetable, right? But we won't tell you that is 2027 or is 2035 or whatever. Well, I think that's enough. To have a time limit is enough answer for my reading of the situation.
Well, let me tell you something. Mr. Xu has other plans on how to resolve the post-takeover scenario, but I'll leave it to him whether he wants to say it or not. I doubt if he will. But anyway, you have just blown my theory out of the water. I always say that I don't worry about I don't worry about Beijing. Beijing is rational. Beijing is calculating, and Beijing, if it has a strong leader in power, then he can control his own domestic situation such that it doesn't get out of hand. That which worries me has always been the United States, because of the plurality of the political system. And, Nancy Pelosi can do this, the next lady or next guy can do that, and then they are, for own self-political gains or whatever, they don't give a damn about national long-term good. And so I worry about the United States more than I worry about China. What you're telling me now is that I should worry about China as well. That Xi Jinping may have a time limit, which then eventually will force a time schedule. It's inevitable, right? If you have a limit, you have to eventually come up with some plan. So you are suggesting that, can I understand it this way, that China is buying time. China is preparing everything they can. And by the way, personal view, if you want to go to war, of course, today's war is no longer just bang, bang, you are dead, right? Cyber is also war. Currency is war. There are many aspects to war nowadays. But let's just focus on the bang, bang. The thing that you have to do, besides preparing your military and associated necessities such as food and energy is to prepare your own people, prepare the hearts of your own people. And to me, a lot of people are saying, hey, China is now 铁板一块. It is all unified. Everybody is Xi's man. Oh, I didn't know that Republican will give a cabinet post to a Democrat. I didn't know that. Last time I heard about it was Abraham Lincoln did it. But anyway, so of course they want to have a unified front. But a unified front in a stronger way is necessary in case of problems such as a war. And so a lot of the things that Xi Jinping is doing domestically, I think we should analyze it not just from a, say, economic perspective, financial perspective, also from a national, bigger agenda perspective, including the Taiwan issue. So if Taiwan, if in the mind of Xi Jinping, let me say one more thing. Whether Xi Jinping at one point has taking back Taiwan as his primary objective or not, I don't know. But whatever it is, I think that he has to think twice, having seen the madness with which America can go to in the Ukraine war. America is not hurting Ukraine. Not just hurting Ukraine. America is hurting America. By the way, a very senior American banker said, and you were there, I was there the other day, that, anyway, I better not say it. Oh, okay, it's okay. He basically said that America's, dealing with the SWIFT, not allowing Russian banks to deal through, to transact through SWIFT, it's no problem. We can bypass that easily. All American banks know how to do it. And many other banks around the world know how to do it. Out of 7 banks, only 1 you really cannot deal with. All 6 are okay. So in other words, America is getting nothing for doing something that has long-term consequences. Will the world trust you anymore? America is hurting itself. It is forcing a parallel system from SWIFT. It's forcing other, at least in trade and investment, using non-US dollar. So if at the end of the day, America may be the biggest loser in the way they react to the Ukraine war. And no one should think that a smart person doesn't make stupid mistakes. History is full of it. And so you say, oh, America is smart. Yeah, smart people make dumb mistakes as well all the time. And so what you're telling me about is the Taiwan Strait situation is far more sensitive than what I like to think. What is your primary worry? Your worry is on the Beijing side or on the Washington, D.C. side?
I don't worry about both sides.
Oh. So what do you worry about?
What you said about America is true, right? For example, the imminent danger after today's election and the results are in favor of what's going to happen. The Taiwan Policy Act, they're going to pass it, at least in one house, if not both houses. Biden tried to lobby to tone down the substance of the act. But even if it's tuned down, I don't think the Chinese like it. Now the Americans try to tell the Chinese, don't worry about it. This is just a congregational action. The key is still in the administration. But Biden is not going to veto this, okay? Politically, he cannot do it. The Chinese side are now saying, I think behind closed door, we are considering at least to recall our ambassador to the U.S. And because the basis of our diplomatic relations is gone by this. You are blatantly interfering in our internal affair and violating your promise that you accept Taiwan is part of China, which they still say, but they are considering to cut tie with the U.S. diplomatically. That's what's saying behind the scene. But they definitely consider if they're going to pass that law and Biden signed it into, what are we going to do? That is the biggest excuse for them to attack Taiwan immediately. And the world would say, hey, U.S., you did it yourself. Just like Pelosi visiting Taiwan. I sent a warship 25 miles from Taipei. Who complained? Nobody complained. Because you, U.S., did it to yourself. You Taiwanese do it to us by inviting this person to Taipei. I told them there will be many chances like this in the future for the Chinese to have a reason to take action. And the world, not completely, but by and large, will say, none of my business. That's the U.S. situation they have to face. But they cannot control it. All right, because of domestic political situation. Chinese has no domestic political resistance on this. I'm telling you. If they do it tomorrow, the whole country will rise up to support Xi, with the exception of the business sector, but they will keep shut up. Because
sure.
Their store will be stoned by the mob if they come up and say, hey, don't do it. Or say, Xi, you're wrong to do it. It's so overwhelming support on this issue. What you are afraid is that she would use this populist sentiment to cover some other problems. But I don't think that he would do it. He would just do it because he needs to do it. And the situations allow him to do it. So I don't worry about both sides. I mean, this is going to happen. And I think the end result is good in the sense if this issue is resolved, it will be basic change to the U.S.-China relations. And back to the original argument I have about the U.S. dollars, because what the U.S. did in Ukraine against Russia is the biggest move to destroy the U.S. dollar's credibility in the world. Not because the Chinese are challenging it.
Correct.
They have forced every country from Saudi Arabia to China to Russia and everybody
India
to get away from the U.S. dollars. I mean, you as an investor, I'm sure you're worrying about how the U.S. dollar would collapse. Sooner or later, it will collapse. The U.S. dollar is rising high now because they raise interest rate and other people are reluctant to do it. So all the money are flowing back to the U.S. But this is short term. This is illusionary in a way. Everybody knows the U.S. dollar is going to collapse, but they don't know when, and they probably don't know how. But it's simply unsustainable for what the U.S. did for the last 20 years. Now it comes to inflation, right? And they have to do it by raising interest rate and creating this situation. So the irony is that if they are worrying about the U.S. dollar position, but they did so many stupid things to destroy the U.S. dollars, the Chinese are saying, well, we are foreseeing a multipolar world with maybe three currencies: Chinese dollar, U.S. dollar, and the euros. Well, my answer to them is, it might be the case, but it will be a very bad case because any multipolar currency system will be inherently unstable, right? You're looking at this guy, you're looking at that guy, everybody's looking at the other two guys, and you're not going to have a stable world economy that way. I hope that if it happens, it only happens in a short time, and then somebody emerge to be the stabilization dominant currency again.
Okay, let's finish it. Okay, let's open it to the floor.
It's not a happy picture, but
I must open it to the floor somehow. He and I can go on for another 5 hours, but we've done it before. Yeah, Evan?
No, just regarding the currency, I think that's an interesting point. I mean, you said rightfully, I think that what they say about the renminbi internationalization and so forth, the rhetoric does not match their actions. And so I just want to ask you, do they have an incentive to actually follow through and make the renminbi the international currency? Is that maybe part of the plan that they have to deal with
some
U.S.
academics and nationalists would like to push for that, but I think the People's Bank of China is not going that way. They allow you to say it, but they don't do anything. My advice to them: don't do it. Don't do it. Okay?
They won't.
They don't want to do it.
They don't want.
The authority don't want to do
stupid.
it. The academics and some big mouth want to push for it. Why do they want to do it? I think the Chinese financial system is not mature. Okay? They run their own show, and they still pop up here and there problems. And if they have to face the world to manage the RMB, which we have some suggestions for them, they are way behind. So don't do it. You don't have the ability to do it. You don't have the right people yet. In 10 years, 30 years, I don't know. But you don't have the mechanism and the right people to handle this. Okay?
Yep. They're not that stupid.
That's the People's Bank of China's, I think, position. They didn't say it. They used to be, don't say internationalization. But now they let them say it. But if you look at the bonds they have outside you can buy, and the amount of RMB cash monies outside China is very small. Very, very small. Even Hong Kong has 70% of the but it's insignificant. It cannot replace the US dollars as a reserve currency. I think the first step they will do is to do more trade settlement with Chinese dollars. Now, even that is dangerous because in order to do that, you have to have a large amount of RMB outside of China, meaning outside of their control. They don't want that. Right? They don't want that. If it's a large amount of RMB outside of their control, they are faced a lot of trouble. I agree with that. So they don't want to do it, but now they are forced to do it because what happened to Russia in Ukraine, right? So they are talking about the digital RMB, and they are moving with Hong Kong, Thailand, and Saudi Arabia to create a digital currency exchange, etc. They are doing all the mechanisms that are necessary to face the situation we are talking about today. They're preparing for it, but they're not preparing to replace the US dollars. Well, there's a difference between the
Yan Hai, from Mando Life.
So actually, I agree with you, and I think the PBOC, the People's Bank of China, started to think of RMB internationalization in late 1990s, but was disrupted by the Asian financial crisis, and then by the GFC in 2008. So currently, the issue is whether China is ready for the capital account, fully convertibility of capital account. So as long as China still want to control the capital, and then this is not ready for them. But I agree with you that China is trying to do sign the agreement on currency swaps so that can provide China with more flexibility in international payment. And another issue on the Taiwan is what I heard, especially from the U.S. military, and they believe China does not have the amphibious landing capabilities, so that means they cannot take over Taiwan in a very short period of time before the U.S. can, react on that, have their to support Taiwan, and also on another point, we probably need to consider the current economic I can't say crisis, but more like a huge pressure on China, its own domestic economy, especially with the property and credit risk, and also the lack of confidence of the private sector owners and the international investors. So with all these, will that taking over in the next 3 or 5 years would be too costly or unaffordable for China? And especially after the Russian-Ukrainian crisis, I think China's like state-owned banks as well as other SOEs are reviewing their playbook to see whether they can react to the potential sanctions on that. And lastly, on the national sentiment, I think overall, if you read from the social media, it seems all the Chinese people support the government's potential action of taking over Taiwan, but they never think about what the war is. China has been living in peace for so many decades. So if every family has to send their sons or husband to the battlefield, what will that be mean to China? So that's a different story.
Well, China domestically face a lot of problems, particularly in your business, okay? But you're not exactly in their business because you're not in residential properties, but many other problems. But this is two sides to this logic. Politicians are known to use war to resolve problems they cannot resolve, right? The whole focus is shift to somewhere else. I'm not saying Xi is doing it. I don't think he'll do it in such a manner. But domestic problem would not deter China to taking action in Taiwan because that's a paramount national issue. Fathers and mothers of Chinese young peoples, I tell you, would be proud to lose their son in that battle. Don't take my word for it. Think about it. Another saying from the American general is that when I wake up in Washington in the morning, Taiwan is over. No fighting. No need to fight. No need to land 300,000 troops in the islands in the first 3 days. Yes, China does not have this landing capability. But imagine fishing boats, cargo ships, 10 miles from the island coast, suddenly emerge with soldiers everywhere. It can be done. By the time it takes place, in addition to this 3 carrier they have now, the third one is being tuned into service, they will have a 4th one. 4 aircraft carriers surrounding the island, plus hundreds of ships. The Chinese Navy now is bigger than the US Navy, worldwide.
Number of ships.
Okay.
Yeah,
number of ships. Okay. So don't talk about militarily. They cannot do it. It's a non-issue. In Taiwan, my friends in Taiwan tell me, sure, don't worry. The minute it happened, all soldiers will run away.
Taiwan soldiers.
All soldiers will run away, disappear. Because nobody wants to fight. They know they can't fight the Chinese. A retired general
but
in one of my meetings, okay, in Hong Kong, he said, sure, don't worry. The U.S. sold us equipments. Most of them are low ends, okay? The high ends, they don't deliver to Taiwan. They kept it in Okinawa or California. If you want to use it, you tell me, I'll bring it to you. You pay for it, but it's in Okinawa.
And
because you cannot use it unless I said so, but you'll pay for it.
Same in Europe.
Okay, the U.S. does not trust the Taiwanese because if you surrender, all the high-end equipment will be in the communist hands, right? So they don't want to sell you high-end stuff. The Taiwanese know it. We are paying a protection money for us. We have to pay it But this guns, this ships, this airplanes is useless in facing the communists. The general knows it. The soldier knows it. Nobody wants to join the army. Okay? They cannot recruit enough people. How are you going to fight? There's no fight. The issue is not fighting. The issue is simply how do you run Taiwan after you get it? How do you face the crazy Americans who will do everything in order to keep their face in front of the world that we try to protect Taiwan, and we will protect Taiwan to the utmost of it, so that you can trust me tomorrow. That's the single biggest worry of U.S. If we lose Taiwan, we will lose credibility all over the world. We're no longer a protector of world. That is the biggest cause, not Taiwan. Okay? The smart thing is Su Xi, the Deputy National Security Advisor under Ma Ying-jeou. He said the smartest way for both sides is to have the Chinese and Americans sit down and talk about this and solve this. This is the rational way. But rational way don't usually happen in international politics and in wars and peace.
Roy Chan and then Kam Sheng here. Roy?
Yeah, thank you for very insightful sharing. I want to bring the focus a bit closer to home. Under your scenario, what's the best outcome for Hong Kong? Or how should we position ourselves so that we can not benefit, but at least...
Not get hurt too much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I told Beijing that this is serious for Hong Kong. As I said, it's happening now. I believe there's already Taiwanese money moving to Hong Kong, facing this situation. Of course, they can move to the U.S., to Canada, Australia, Singapore, and some of them will move part of their assets to Hong Kong as a way to deal with it. But not to say my old colleague who are moving back to Hong Kong in face of the situation. What are we doing? We're doing nothing. When it happened, now one crazy Taiwanese pro-independence said, oh, we're going to shoot a missile to Hong Kong. You don't do it, we'll shoot a missile to Hong Kong, right? He can say it, but I don't think he has the chance to do it because it happened in 2 minutes. He's still in his bed. Well, when it happened, of course, it will be a big disruption for Hong Kong in many sense. Not necessarily in the military sense. We're close enough, right, between here and Kaohsiung, particularly the Dongsha Island, which is very close to Hong Kong, is a military base for the Taiwan, but I think it's basically ineffective. And our PLA garrison in Hong Kong would also has a role, or at least part of the picture in dealing with this.
They must be planning
So
for that.
what happened, my feeling is that it will happen so quickly that just like the American general, that by the time you heard about it, it's over. Okay. After it happened, so my role has been, we've been running Hong Kong before and after, and with all these problems, and then we're asked to, based on your experience, how do you propose the Taiwan one country, two system policy in Taiwan? We did a study based on our own experience in Hong Kong, which now I throw into the garbage can because it won't work the way they work in Hong Kong. And even in Hong Kong, they have big troubles, right? So they have to throw away the Hong Kong experience and do it completely in Taiwan. Happily, there are people saying, if we want to take it back by force, there's no more one country, two system, right? You don't need it. We take it by force. I strongly disagree with this. It happened, I'm right. Now, Xi Jinping is still saying that no matter the way we take it over, one country, two system will still be the policy for Taiwan. Okay, I'm doing a study because their understanding of the one country, two system strategic thinking is changing. A lot of people thinking, well, you have this because you want to buy out Hong Kong and buy out the international community so that you can take back Hong Kong and Macau, right? That's one. But I think China, since Mao and Deng Xiaoping and now Xi, their thinking is way beyond this. It's not just for Hong Kong that they are doing one country, two system. They are doing it for themselves. Why? Because in the long run, well, not in the 50s, they realized they have to coexist with a capitalist system, a capitalist world for a long, long time. Right? They won't say it in the 50s. They have no idea. They thought
1950s.
Communism is going to come tomorrow. Okay? But now they realize that this socialist period for China will coexist with a capitalist world for a long, long time. So you need Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan to keep the way it is as a buffer, as another channel to deal with the West. Okay? Not just Washington and Beijing. Okay? This proposal was completely news to me. To set up a Hong Kong International Arbitration Center in Hong Kong. Just announced. You probably didn't read it in the news. It's in the news. But nobody paid much attention to it. The foreign ministry announced, based on an international something, they had agreement with the Hong Kong government to set up an international dispute settlement center in Hong Kong. Okay? No, nothing about it. I had never heard of this. But it's announced. That reflects their thinking. Now, we have to coexist with America and most of the world, which are still capitalistic, right? What's the use of making Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau just like Guangzhou and Shanghai? It's useless to us. This is another big trouble. Keep it the way it is so that we have more leverage, different way of dealing with the world. That's their strategic thinking. It's not just to buy off Hong Kong. Hey, say you can keep your horse racing, your dancing, etc. But it's a complicated issue. We are studying this because they have problems. But that is the strategic thinking. So even by force, I take over Taiwan. I don't want to mess around. Leave it alone, and you can continue the way your life is. And I think that's the basic principle. But the way it would done would have to be very different from the way they did it in Hong Kong.
Last question, Kam Sheng Kwan from JP Morgan.
I think this session has been most uplifting. I remain optimistic. If the
Really?
UK,
Uplifting?
despite
Oh, gosh.
its flaws, has managed to come up with a minority young and smart prime minister, so I think we can be hopeful. You mentioned that you were asked to actually come up with a proposal to negotiate with Taiwan. Obviously, it didn't happen. If you're tasked with that again today, would you take up the challenge, and what would you suggest?
No,
I mean, the war
I'll take up the
seems
challenge
like
because I ran the Basic Law Consultative Committee for 5 years. And I think it's successful. But nobody says it's a failure. Okay, anyway, okay? Those were the good days. We have 180 members from all walks of life, from the big bankers to street hawkers. And we did a good consultative exercise. So I was supposed to do this subject. But I conceded to a Taiwanese friend because he's in Taiwan and he knows the political situations in Taiwan much better than I do.
I should invite him here.
Based
to speak as well.
on my
A friend of mine as
understanding
well.
and my experience, I would say, first, it would not be a government-to-government process. It will be a party-to-party process. That's the Communist Party would organize a representative body representing the mainland side. And some party from Taiwan, together with social elements, business, labor, academics, social figures, and they can sit together and start talking formally with an agenda, right? That if after unification, what will be done. But the problem with this, it will not be a government to government because the Beijing government does not recognize the Taiwanese government. So there will not be a government to government negotiation on the table. Of course, on the Taiwanese side, you can have the government behind it, or you don't have to have the government behind it. That's the only possible way of doing it. But it will not happen, as I said. The American will not let the Taiwanese side to have such a body. And everybody who jump up, who want to organize this, would be unable to put together a sensible group that can represent the Taiwanese side. So it will not happen. But I think they should do it anyway. They should do it anyway.
Anyway, we better end because it's 2:30.
Up to you.
2:30 already. I just end with one story. Although I left the board of the Asia Society Global Board, they still ask me to periodically talk to them. So the last time I said, I don't want to meet with the whole board, I just want to meet with a few of you. So I met with the co-chairs, which is John Thornton and Ambassador Chen Heng-chi from Singapore, who was 17 years the ambassador to the United States, our Vice Chairman Lulu Wong, and Kevin Rudd, our president, and myself. So 6 of us met together. And after an hour and a half, I gave my conclusion. And my concluding word is this, that America has been losing moral authority and credibility around the world for several decades. And everybody knows it except one country. And that is at the crux of a lot of a problem. And that is everybody knows it except the United States. And they're behaving as if they are totally oblivious to this fact which everybody else in the world knows. So the application of this statement of mine is the following. I believe that something may happen in the world which will further distance America from Europe. My Middle Eastern friends tells me that as far as they are concerned in that part of the world, from Egypt to Israel to Saudi Arabia to UAE, as far as they are concerned, America is no longer a player in that region. Just look at the way the Saudi and the UAE people have been reacting and responding. And so the next one may be Europe. And the fact that because of the Ukraine war, Europe has no choice but to work with the United States. But for many, many reasons which I don't have time to go into, I believe that the rift between Europe and America will only deepen. The mistrust is tremendous. It may not hit the press, but let me assure you, the leaders know. And China, Beijing will buy its time and find the right moment. And when there is further rift in the Atlantic Ocean, I think together with other things, other issues that may happen, that may be a time for Xi Jinping to act. And as you well said, Abo, that America is not helping Taiwan at all, just like they sold out Ukraine as if it's a fly. They are selling out Taiwan again, including Nancy Pelosi's visit and many, many other actions. And such is international politics. I always tell my distinguished diplomatic friends, and I was hosted dinner by 4 of them from Europe just last week, that the principle that governs diplomacy and the principle that governs the mafias are exactly the same. One wear a black glove and the other wear a white glove, and that's all. And if you don't recognize it, you're stupid, and they're not stupid. At heart, they know it. And so you have to think like the mafia do in international affairs. And so I think that, the world, I believe, is going to be a very splintered world, such as a question on currency. I don't think the Chinese are that stupid to want to take over the leadership in currency or in any other thing, by the way, in the world. But the splintered world of tomorrow, including the currency, is going to be the new normal. And so I think Hong Kong people, business executives, bankers, other leaders in society better know where the heck the world is moving towards. Prepare yourself accordingly, including psychologically, if not just for your business and so forth. So anyway, we have one man's view today. You don't have to agree with Abo. I disagree with him all the time. A few of us get together regularly, and I hear everybody. They all fight with each other. I usually don't say anything because I'm not smart enough in that crowd, but I listen to everybody and make my own decision. So ladies and gentlemen, you heard one view, make up your own decision, but nonetheless, I think it's an interesting view. So round of applause for Mr. Xu Jinping.
Thank you.